Well, President Biden is urging Congress to approve another round of Ukraine aid by Memorial Day. The $33 billion package appears to have bipartisan support, but clashes over COVID funding have prevented lawmakers from reaching any progress. All of this comes as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi meets with Poland's president today after holding talks with Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv over the weekend. Nikole Killion has more. Nikole, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Anne-Marie. And when Speaker Pelosi returns here to Washington, she will be one of the key players trying to get this $33 billion package for Ukraine through. Many Democrats and Republicans already agree that this supplemental aid should be a priority, but some worry that it could get stalled if Democratic leaders try to tie the funding to a $10 billion COVID package to boost pandemic programs. That measure has been held up for weeks over the fight to reimpose Title 42, a Trump-era immigration policy. As for timing, the House is out this week, so final approval is probably a few weeks away. But to underline the urgency, President Biden will travel to Alabama tomorrow to visit a Lockheed Martin factory that produces Javelin missiles, which are some of the weapons being sent over to Ukraine. Anne-Marie?
You explain that in such a concise manner, how one thing is connected to another, to another, to another. It could get complicated really quickly, and you understand why nothing gets done quickly in Congress. But let me ask you about this unannounced visit that Nancy Pelosi made. First to Ukraine to visit Volodymyr Zelensky, and then today visiting Poland's president. Do we know anything about her meeting with Poland's president, how that went, and also the meeting over the weekend?
Yeah, well, in terms of her trip to Ukraine, I think it's important to note that she is the highest ranking U.S. official to visit Ukraine. Of course, we saw Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin visit recently, but that does make this surprise trip over the weekend significant. As for her meeting this morning with Polish President Duda, she said that this was really an opportunity to try to continue to convey the U.S.'s support for Poland and reaffirm the U.S.'s partnership with the country, and also to thank them for welcoming and absorbing so many of these refugees from Ukraine into their country. So that was the primary focus of their discussions today.
So in regards to this $33 billion in additional aid for Ukraine, you mentioned there's bipartisan support. Is there bipartisan agreement as to how it will be paid for?
Well, for the most part, in terms of Republicans I've talked to and Democrats, they equally agree that this supplemental package should be a priority, especially when it comes to military assistance. Many lawmakers have told me they really believe that Ukraine really needs all the help that it can get. So there is agreement there. There is disagreement, though, in terms of how this gets done. And again, as we alluded to, there is this possibility, and Speaker Pelosi has even said that she would like to tie this funding to COVID funding, which is also another White House priority, would provide more resources to deal with the ongoing pandemic. And so, she and Leader Schumer would like to get both of these things done. As with the White House, many Republicans have balked at that idea, though, and say it's likely both of those packages could be doomed if Democratic leaders try to tie them together.
And I think the president, when he announced this request, said that the money would sort of keep Ukraine going at least until September. I think that was the aim. The bulk of the package is military aid. What does that say about where the Biden administration and House members believe the war, how it has shifted, rather?
Well, again, in terms of the White House, this funding, if all of it is approved in its entirety, is designed to fund Ukraine for the long term, as you mentioned, at least through September. And keep in mind that this is something that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been pleading for weeks and months, to get more military support. So I think this is just the administration trying to respond to that request. Again, out of this $33 million, $33 billion, I should say, $20 billion is specifically earmarked for military assistance to cover things like artillery, armored vehicles, additional anti-air capacities, and the like, as well as air defense systems to also strengthen the general NATO security posture in the region. Of course, there is some economic assistance folded in there to continue to help the country of Ukraine keep its government functioning and stable, as well well as its agriculture industry, and then, of course, humanitarian assistance, which we've seen with respect to food security and other issues to try to assist people there.
All right, Nikole, thank you very much.
You bet.